are gathered here at the tail end of what was declared and celebrated as the year of O.R. Tambo. We used this period to reflect on the legacy of this gallant leader of the liberation struggle. I had the singular honor of chairing the Interministerial Committee on the O.R. Tambo centenary celebrations. It is almost impossible to speak of O.R. Tambo without mentioning his close friend and comrade, Nelson Mandela. Tambo and Mandela met on the soccer field as students at the University of Fort Hare in 1940. They struck a friendship that would last a lifetime. They joined the African National Congress and played an instrumental role in the founding of the ANC Youth League in 1944. Outside the political arena, they were also the pioneers in the legal field as they established the first black-owned legal firm in the history of South Africa in 1952. Tambo was succeeded by Nelson Mandela as the president of the ANC in 1991. It is such a coincidence that these close companions and friends succeed each other even in their years of birth. As we conclude the O.R. Tambo centenary, we begin the Nelson Mandela centenary. The whole world has been celebrating Nelson Mandela Day for a number of years now, but next year's installment has to be something very special, as the 18th of July 2018 will mark what would have been Madiba's 100th birthday. It is an honor and a privilege that I have been appointed by the President to serve as the chairperson of the Interministerial Committee for the centenary of the late President Mandela. When President Mandela ceased to breathe on this day, the 5th of December 2013, he left indelible footprints in his wake. Madiba left a legacy of selflessness, of resilience, and of devotion. Although the popular revolutionary song Akekho Ofana Naye intimates that there is no one like him, it also implores us to emulate his selflessness. As the government of South Africa, we are deeply committed to upholding the legacy, the principles and values that President Mandela cherished as the founding father of our democratic society. Those of us who had the privilege of working closely with Madiba know that he always insisted that as a leader, he was part of a collective. His successes were the successes of the people. When we celebrate his legacy, we must reflect on his different dimensions as truthfully as possible. In 1998, President Mandela made one of the most profound observations about the distortion of his life and legacy. And I quote, "One issue that deeply worried me in prison was the false image that I unwittingly projected to the outside world of being regarded as a saint. I never was one, even on the basis of the earthly definition of a saint as a sinner who keeps trying." Close quotes. I was privileged to serve as a minister in the first cabinet that President Mandela appointed as the first president of a democratic South Africa in 1994. Under his stewardship, our country adopted one of the best constitutions in the history of humanity. We owe it to the President Mandela's visionary leadership that today our country is a constitutional democracy well into the 23 years of freedom and democracy. I trust that as we honor the Nelson Mandela centenary in 2018, the whole world would join hands with us in celebrating this global icon. This will present us with a wonderful opportunity to reflect on the legacy of Nelson Mandela. We'll also use this opportunity to promote peace, to deepen democracy, and to fight to protect human rights as some of the deep values that Madiba espoused. Mandela meant different things to different people and would like to reflect on the various aspects that Madiba represented. The Nelson Mandela Centenary IMC will be responsible for planning and coordinating the centenary program befitting the legacy and the heritage of Mandela. The IMC is comprised of ministers from relevant government departments, including arts and culture, basic education, communications, cooperative governance and traditional affairs, defense and military veterans, higher education and training, international relations and cooperation, police, public works, sports and recreation, and lastly, water and sanitation. These ministers will be supported by senior officials from their respective departments, as well as the technical committee chaired by the Director General in the Presidency, Dr. Cassius Lubisi. The IMC will be working in close collaboration with the Nelson Mandela Foundation to ensure that we develop a program appropriate for someone of Madiba's stature. We have begun with our engagements with the foundation, and I must say the program is indeed promising to be a great one. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, we have quite a comprehensive plan for the centenary of Mandela. And Mandela belonged to all of us, and it is our objective to ensure that the national program is as inclusive as possible. The plans for the launch of the Nelson Mandela Centenary, as well as the details of the program, will be announced in due course. As I conclude, the ancients say, when a big tree falls, the earth is bound to shake. This rings true of what we witnessed on that fateful day 4 years ago. The passing on of Nelson Mandela 4 years ago shook South Africa, it shook our African continent, and it shook the whole world. It is therefore befitting that as we reflect on the legacy of President Mandela, the whole world must join us in honoring this global icon. This is a clarion call to all South Africans and the world over to honor Madiba in his centenary. The celebration of Mandela's legacy is the celebration of the triumph of the human spirit over the greatest travesties served on humanity. Let us make 2018 the year of Nelson Mandela.